Well, here we are then.
Again.
Hello, Mr. Huxtable. Hello,
Hello.
audience. Is anybody out there? Is anybody listening?
Yeah, 29 countries, Richard. Let's remind ourselves of that. 29 countries. And for those of you who cannot see us, who are listening either on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, Richard has a swanky new background behind him. He's been taking notes from the podcast that we had a few weeks ago. He was talking about presentation. Who was that again? Remind me.
Absolutely. That was Andy Taylor-White.
Andy Taylor-White, yeah.
Talking about presenting yourself on the old tech side of things, and you've got to have a good background. You don't want too busy. You don't want it too messy. So I've gone ethereal. For those who can't see, I am in the clouds. I'm actually moving on up to where I believe I should be stationed in life, in a sort of godlike role, overlooking everything.
Heavenly standing.
So yeah, I've got a lovely cloudy sky with some blue coming through, and then this fantastic logo is coming from the heavens, saying instant insight,
transformational. Well, you know, transformational feedback. For those of you who can't see me, I'm still sat in front of Dartmoor on a beautiful day, bringing things right back down to earth. So I need to work on my my background image, I think. So listen, enough of that frivolity and in the cloud.
Stop having fun. Down to business.
Fun. Yeah, what are we talking about today then? Who have you been, you've been speaking to a leadership expert, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, business coach, leadership expert, guru extraordinaire, Susannah Brade-Waring of Aspirin Solutions. And she talks about why they've called Aspirin Solutions in our little interview. But actually, you know, I think we'll let Susannah introduce herself and we'll get on with it, and then you can hear
Susannah. Yeah,
talk about.
Looking forward to it.
So hello everybody and welcome to Customer Experience R&R with my good self, Richard Knight. You've just heard me talking to Ryan about this fantastic interview. Really excited to speak today to Susannah Brade-Waring from Aspirin Business and talk all things business, which is what we do obviously on these podcasts. But I will move over to you, Susannah, and let you introduce yourself to our listeners and our viewers. So please do go ahead.
Thank you. As you say, for me, the arena I work with is all about business. I'm a business advisor, coach, mentor. I specialise in working with family businesses, SMEs, with the owner managers, business owners and their successors, but also around kind of their operations, because all of that has to come together to build strong businesses and strong teams.
Mm-hmm. Oh, fantastic. And in terms of the services you offer for those people, you mentioned the coaching and that side of things. Is that across the country? Are you based purely down in the southwest? How does that work with you currently with the whole Zoom piece coming forward?
We've always worked in a blended way like this, and we have customers. There's two parts of our business. So there's more of the business advisory, let's say, working in the businesses, working with the business owners. That's the Aspirin Business Solutions part. So it's all about kind of why do you have to have all the headaches yourself? People have learned this stuff before, so actually learn from other people. And another part of our business, it focuses primarily on motivation, and that side of the business we have customers in Australia and Hungary. So part of our work has always been online, and there's a real benefit. So for me, there are times when it's really great to be in the room, because actually that level of communication, particularly where it's more difficult conversations, much more the strategic thinking, problem solving, actually there's a better energy and dynamic in the room. Once you've built that kind of trust, it's really easy then to move on to it for more of the operational transactional stuff in a way online, because you built up that relationship, you built up the trust and the rapport. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, it's great to be able to work across a global organization. Fantastic. And you mentioned strategy there. Clearly, you know, a key focus for you within the business. And myself and Ryan were talking last week about Boris's announcements and the roadmap out of the lockdown. Now, from a strategy point of view, what's your current thinking and thoughts about how this is going to impact businesses as we move along this roadmap? I think everyone needs certainty. So you know, Richard, you and I know, like, motivation is such a key part of everything we do. We might know what to do, we might know how to do it, but if we don't have the motivation, if we can't be bothered, nothing's going to happen. And part of that motivation, the very foundations of it around security, certainty, predictability. If we can't plan, then we can't commit the resources and the energy and communicate and everything else. At the same time, we know that when you enter into business, you have to be somewhat of an optimist, have a certain arrogance around you that kind of says, I can actually overcome the normal challenges. So there is a level of needing to plan and needing to have plans ready to go, but being flexible around actually when are they going to roll out, what is the operation going to look like. But if you've got 80% of it planned out, you can then tweak the rest without actually getting too frustrated and angry and upset, because that's not helpful emotion. So plan, but obviously you've also got to keep on your toes, talk to people and have things lined up ready to go if you're not already in business. You know, so many people like us, we've continued all the way through anyway, and we've kind of cut our costs to suit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's quite an interesting one, isn't it, in terms of the difference in positions of organizations going forward. However, if you've been continuing to trade, work throughout the period, or if you're closed now and you're planning to restart, I'm assuming there are certain views from the leadership point of view that they need to have in their minds. You mentioned the motivation piece. It's really interesting that in terms of that attitude going forward. How does that translate, or can that translate into sort of practical tips in terms of what people can be considering during this time if they're the leaders? Because you mentioned you work with leaders a lot, which is clearly the crux of it. What are the key things that they need to be having at the forefront of their minds at the moment, beyond that plan piece? And people go, oh no, I'm going to plan, but you know, what sort of thing can they?
There's loads of things that they can be doing, you know, and there's lots of help and advice out there for doing that, you know, and certainly in terms of getting people back into the workplace, or whether you're going to move into some kind of hybrid learning, and all those kind of fundamentals around there, around communication, thinking about job changes, job roles, you know. But fundamentally, if you have a strong relationship between the business owner, the business leaders, and the employees, you communicate. You know, you don't know all the answers, and you tell them you don't know all the answers, but you tell them what you can tell them when you can tell them. If you have that fundamental strength there, everything else will fall into place. Okay? So that really is you know, I guess I don't really want to spend too much time talking about that kind of detail, because there's
just top line pieces.
The thing that I think is even more important for business owners is the impact it's had on their aspirations, their dreams. Because when you start up in business, as you know, you kind of come into it with a passion, with something that you think that you can do really well, and something that you think you've got an angle on. And very rarely do we then think about the exit. You know? So we think about, we want to do this, we want to start this. We don't necessarily think about the exit until we get much older, and maybe we get ill. Maybe actually we just get tired. Maybe we've got family where we're going, actually, we always said we'd do this and we'd do that. The big thing that COVID, but more importantly, lockdown, has had an impact on is the timing of that. There's a whole lot of people now who are going to exit at a certain point, at a certain age, and lockdown has massively impacted that. And so I think what's even more important, that will determine all the operational stuff, is what is the business owner's plan? Correct. So there are business owners who are very close to going, actually, we're only a couple of years off now being able to sell, to exit. That might have been knocked back by a few more years. So now maybe they're 5 years. So now they're going to be thinking about, actually, what does that exit look like? Do I still have the energy, the heart, and therefore to actually get the value that I need for my retirement. Because most people sink all their money, all their savings into their business. That their business is their pension in many ways. So really, they've got to think about the timeline and going, what do we need to generate in the next, say, 5 years, 3 to 5 years, and therefore, what does the business look like? Where's the income coming from in the next, say, 3 years? And then what then does my business look like, my workforce look like, my customers look like, my setup look like? It's all shifted. It's all shifted. And so you really got to re-look back at actually, the strategy comes from the business owner. So it's really interesting times.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's that sort of regularity of review as well, whereas people might think, oh, I know vaguely where we want to get to in 3 or 5 years time, so we'll just carry on until then. But that clearly we need to stop and review a little bit more often now because of that speed of change going forward. So so in terms of those 3 or 5 years time, clearly everything's going to be happening and at different paces. What's your sort of view? I mean, I know various people have said, oh, it's going to be terrible. We've got to batten down the hatches for the next couple of years because it's going to be really tough. And actually next year is going to be tougher. How are you seeing that from that sort of leadership point of view? Is that something that you think is going to be happening? Because I know that actually, I remember speaking to you just before the pandemic sort of started coming, and you used the word unprecedented time back in then. So I think you've probably got a crystal ball there, Susannah. So we want to know, what's the next one? What's the next prediction? How's it going to look? I mean, obviously, we're not going to hold you to that, but is it going to be the same, or what are the key things that perhaps we need to be thinking about?
The reason back in like December, January, I was talking about unprecedented times was because I genuinely believed we still are a sick society. Mental health was massively on the increase. 1 in 4 people expect to have mental ill health. More than 1 in 3 people living from payday to payday. The amount of personal debt in the UK had never been higher before the pandemic. We were consumer mad, buying. This is not a healthy society. And I really hope that we readjust from this, because it was going to implode. It was not sustainable. Whereas I really genuinely believe business is a force for good. Business work should be something that enriches your life, that actually is something that adds to it rather than takes away from it. I have a lot of contacts. So what I'm hearing from the business advisory group that I'm part of in Australia is they are predicting the next 3 years in business is going to be the best in the past 50 years, because we're going to have a boom when this confidence comes back, and actually people recognize you need to grow to get out of this. You can't keep pulling back and keep pulling back. You've got to have that balanced optimism, and or what we might call bounded optimism. So you've got to have the optimism. But as you may remember, Rich, prior to this, I was a business leader, director, and under my remits were finance, commercial, HR, and I managed our cash super well. Right from actually the T's and C's in our customers' contracts all the way through to paying our suppliers and obviously our employees on time. So you've got to go, actually, if you believe in your business, you believe that this will pick up, you've got to manage your resources and while that's happening. So you've got to manage your cash. Without cash, nothing else happens. There is that saying, turnover is vanity, profit is sanity, cash is king. Then you've got to optimize your outgoings with your income. So you've got to then work out, where is that income coming from? And it may well be you actually need to change your niche, where you focus, who your customers are, really recognize where their pain points are as well, and go, where is that income coming from in this next 12 to 18 months, which may be different to where it came from in the last 12 to 18 months. Then you can start to update your business plan and then work out, okay, how do we get there? Who's going to help me? Who are our A, B, and C players? And when I talk about A, B, and C players, I think about, if you were moving into the next football season, who are the people in your team that you would re-recruit in a heartbeat? Your A players. Your B players, your steady players. So they're the ones who, they're consistent, they're good, they're loyal, you can depend on them. They may not set the world on fire, but actually, you know what? They're great. And then the C players, you then got to go, can we turn them around or can we not? It's really interesting in terms of, do we have the time and the money to actually invest in them? And I can't, that's not a quick answer. It really isn't a quick answer because we don't know how they became C players, until we look into it as well. And so all of this, is got to be around this. I believe you're talking about communication and confusion before. A lot of employees are going, is this organisation going to be here in two years' time? Do I have job security? If they don't feel they've got job security, then actually they don't have the confidence to really push themselves and innovate and challenge and really go out there. So communication is absolutely key to that as well. So I think it's going to be a really interesting time. And I also think that if you're more office-based, we're going to be moving much more to hybrid working. So much more people working from home, which then throws up a whole load of potential issues around, productivity, accountability, visibility, and then leadership management styles, potential micromanagement, which then erodes trust and confidence, so really interesting, fascinating times, but it's all to play for. All to play for.
That's fantastic, and I think it's that optimism, that confidence, as you say. When we talk about it like this, it's catching. People go, "Oh, fantastic! Yeah, we can do this. We can make it." Clearly, there's going to be some difficult decisions to make there. But interestingly enough, I know you run a peer-to-peer group as well. How are the leaders and the members within that group feeling about business at the moment? On the ground, as it were.
They feel great, to be honest with you, because the thing is that by coming together as a group of business leaders, it's not easy. As business leaders, you go into business, you're passionate about something, you're good at something, but you're not necessarily great at running a business. But equally, you don't want to sit in a classroom and be lectured to. So how are you going to learn? Well, I bring business leaders together, we work on the businesses, and they share problems, they challenge each other, they support each other, they share ideas and resources. And actually they're continually improving their business. So when the pandemic came, even though it was unprecedented, they were on the front foot. They'd done a whole load of the groundwork. So yes, of course, it knocked them back, but they were in a strong position to start with. So they're feeling really optimistic, and many of them have grown throughout this as well.
Oh, fantastic.
So the key is you've got to always work on your business.
Yeah. You've got to keep going. Well, absolutely fantastic. In terms of that sort of people getting into contact with you and having a chat and learning a little bit more about Aspirin business, how can they get in contact with you? What's the best way?
The best way is connect with me on LinkedIn, Susannah Brade-Waring, or go to our website, Aspirin Business. It is about the headaches. So there's information on there. The peer-to-peer is fabulous, and you get one-to-one mentoring with me as well, which is great because you can really just dig into those bits that are just blocking everything else. Or if it's motivation that you're interested in actually understanding more about how do I support my employees and their, generally their kind of well-being, their productivity, their performance, all of those kind of things, you can go to our other website, which is motivatedperformance.co.uk.
Fantastic. And all of that information will have appeared magically at the bottom of the screen, I'm sure, when I type it in later on. So it'll all be there. It has arrived. I know it's there now. So Susannah, thank you ever so much for your time and your insight. It's fantastic to speak to you. I'm sure our listeners and viewers gathered some nuggets of information there, and we look forward to seeing you again in the future. So thank you very much.
That's brilliant. Great to talk with you, Richard.
Thank you. So there we go. There's Susannah Brade-Waring from Aspirin Solutions chatting to me the other day. What were your thoughts, Mr. Huxtable?
Wow. Some really forthright views there from Susannah. Great, actually. Really strong views on leadership and, how you bring that back to affecting your customers. And one of the things that really stood out for me listening to Susannah was she talked about, the motivation for running business and bringing it back to, having the security around you and knowing what's going to happen. That's been really difficult, as she pointed out in the past few months. But again, we've mentioned this a number of times, haven't we, about, having the plan and having the easiness of a plan to go to. And she talked about, didn't she? You can plan for anything and you can have 80% of the plan there. But then that last 20% you need to tweak. And I thought there was a real sense of optimism in what she was saying from a business context, in terms of, when we get out of the current restrictions that we're in, there's likely to be 3 years of boom on the back of the pandemic. Well, that's great news for any business owner, isn't it? I went back afterwards and looked at my numbers and thought, I'm not being bold enough, to be honest. So no, I thought some really, really strong messages there about the importance of optimism, and also a word I haven't heard for a long time, but actually really resonated with me, is business owners do need to be a little bit arrogant about what they do, a bit single-minded, and focus and crack on.
Yeah, absolutely. I got that, in terms of that whole confidence piece, and we spoke last podcast about confidence from a consumer point of view, but of course you've got to have that confidence internally, haven't you? If you're not really comfortable and confident about your direction you're heading in, you're more likely to start to waver and move. Whereas if you've got that idea, that arrogance, that you've got a really great product, a really great service, a really great offer, whatever it is, and that there is going to be a need for this, because you've asked your customers. Remember, we're not just doing the old finger in the air. Insight is key. And when you know that bit of insight, you have the confidence, and the confidence coming down from leaders is critical. We've spoken about motivation on podcasts before, and motivated teams equal higher performance. It's really that simple. And if you've got a higher performing leadership team, guess what's going to happen? People are going to echo that and come up all the way through it. So it's going to make a big difference. So I think, that the real focus, and some people might be going, well, this is a CX podcast. What's this leadership got to do with anything? Do you like my impression? I don't know who that person was, to be perfectly honest. Well, leadership, the internal piece, you've got to look at that internal bit first, haven't you? We've got the people, and then from that, your processes come in, and your structure, and Susannah alluded to all this whole focus, goal, strategy piece. And then at the end, outside the back of that, back end of that, comes the fact that your customers will have a good experience, a great experience. So there's a logic in it. There's our viewers and listening friends, there's logic to our madness.
There is logic. There's clear logic. The other thing that I was curious about when I was listening to Susannah was this. She talked about how business owners pre-pandemic might have been thinking that they were getting to a stage in their career where they were thinking about selling their businesses and moving on, and maybe doing something different. And for many people, or indeed changing their business, or for many people that's changed now because of the pandemic, and actually those plans may have been put on hold for a period of time. And one of the things she talked about was business owners being, use the word, ill or tired, or just a little bit lethargic, perhaps going into the pandemic. And they might have great businesses, but actually their vision and their plan and their purpose has fundamentally changed. But the key thing that she talked about was you don't know all of your customers. How close are you to all of your customers? So this point around you might be feeling that the business is going in the right direction because you've done it for a long time, and in reality that's always worked for you, and you've made a good living, and all power to you. But fundamentally the reality of that might be that if your plan has been put back a few years, in terms, you are going to really need to re-engage now to keep that business in a place that is ahead of that pendulum curve that we talk about all the time in Insight 6. Yeah. So I think there was some really super helpful nuggets in what Susannah was saying. So yeah, great podcast. And yeah, it definitely made me think about how I keep my plan alive. That 80% plan that she talks about, how do I keep that going? By talking to my customers and understanding what my customers continue to want. And you know what, that changes, doesn't it? That changes day in, day out at the moment. we're talking about coming out of this, but then there's another variant that's appeared. You know,
Yeah.
God forbid, you know, that I hope it won't, but it has the potential to change things again. So, you know, businesses trying to plan for this and trying to look after their customers throughout this. There's a new dynamism, I think, that's needed when running a business to really, I won't use the P word, but to really change what you're doing really quickly to be able to capitalize on the opportunity, which is what she talked about.
Yeah, and it talks of that resilience piece, doesn't it? You know, it's hard work. It is hard work. Who have you got around you? Who are you talking to internally? Because that hard work and the way it makes us feel can be reflected in terms of the experience that our customers again have. You know, even if it's unconscious, subconscious things are coming through, that our mannerisms, the way we write something, our effort that we put into developing a new service, a new website, and putting a message out on LinkedIn, people pick up on all of those things, and it can make a big difference for you. You're presenting, you know, Andy talking about how we're presenting on Zoom. If we're not feeling great, we're not really there. You know, we might not be putting the effort in to invigorate and encourage people to listen to what we're talking about. You know, we could have come on here and been quite sort of, you know, this is terrible, we're not going to have a really good time. But no, you've got to acknowledge it, but we've got to be able to think about what is it that we want from it. Where are we gathering our energy from as leaders, to be able to really put in place those strategies and bring them to fruition, turn them into something tangible for us and for the customers. So it was a fantastic chat with Susannah there, and I say thank you to her again for giving up some of her time to have a chat with us the other day.
Great. So to next week, I think we said we were going to really focus on, so we've got a bit of a campaign going at the moment in Insight 6 around building on some of the stuff Susannah talked about, but, you know, getting going again. You know, this, are you ready to get go? And, you know, where are you customer ready in your business? You know, many businesses will have been trading throughout. Of course, we know that. Some will be getting ready again to start. And of course, when you listen to this, the Chancellor will have spoken, because we're recording this on Tuesday and he's speaking on Wednesday. So we won't be reflecting what the Chancellor says on Friday. But of course, we'll pick up on that next week, and we'll talk about the opportunities that I think that from a customer experience perspective, that gives many businesses.
So that the key point that we spoke about last week, actually, and we're going to keep talking about, is that, are you ready? Where are you in terms of your customer experience readiness? So therefore, we mentioned it last week. Again, in the chat below, we will leave the link to our customer ready report, so you can pop in there, fill in 12 questions, and really understand where you are in terms of your readiness to deliver for your customers as we go through this roadmap towards freedom. Somebody once said that from north of the border, I recollect. So yeah,
Bristol. Bristol.
North of the border. Yeah, it was up in Gloucestershire. No, yeah. So take the. It takes on average 2 minutes to fill it in. So have a look at it. See what you reckon. It might challenge your thinking about what you're doing. It's your perception of your business and whether you are asking the questions regularly, if you are adjusting what you do according to your customer feedback. Fill it in, see what you reckon. Bit of a challenge for you, people. We don't normally give you a challenge, but this is a bit of a challenge. Are you actually ready? Are you? Are you? We'll see. So take the opportunity. It's there for you. Free PDF. Give it a go. Mr. Huxtable, it's been a pleasure as ever.
As always. So as we say every week, please like, share and comment. Introduce somebody new. Make your spring resolution the opportunity to listen to the R&R podcast. And at some point, of course, we will make it even more fun with another cider review at some point, I'm sure.
I'm sure we will.
But yeah, have a great week, everybody. Thanks for listening. And I've been Ryan Huxtable.
I've been Rich Knight. Speak to you soon.